Hi, I'm the Mythology Guy, and I recently saw Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. This is a sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife, which, if you saw my video on it, you know I loved that movie. I had a great time with that movie. Now we got this one, and it's fine. Honestly, it's just kind of fine. Um, I don't love it, but I also don't hate it. Because I had fun watching it. There were times where I was having a lot of fun watching it. During the first half hour, I was like, oh man, or maybe not first. During one of the beginning parts, I was like, man, I'm really gonna love this film. I'm having a great time watching this film. And there were times where I laughed pretty hard. I liked a lot of the jokes, but there were also times where I was very bored, and there were times I was very confused, and times I was pretty darn disappointed, and times when I was internally screaming at one of the characters, what the hell are you doing? you know? So yeah, as you can tell, mixed feelings there. I think one of the main challenges this movie has is there are so many characters now. They have so many characters, and they're still introducing new ones. We've got the whole original Ghostbusters cast, and then we've got the entire Afterlife cast, and the mom is a Ghostbuster now, and Paul Rudd is a Ghostbuster now, and they even introduce what's that actor's name? Kumail something, who I actually really like that actor. And he's fun in this film, but, it's just another character. And then they put Patton Oswalt in the film, and it just keeps going. And it's they don't know what to do with half these characters, and it's really clear. Bill Murray is only in 2 scenes in the film. I don't know if that's by his own desire or whatever. Podcast from the last film, his name was Podcast, is in this film, and he does nothing the whole film. I don't remember him doing anything except smashing a watch with a hammer at one point. I don't remember him doing anything else in the film. Finn Wolfhard's character, I think his name is Trevor, he's got a couple of funny jokes, but his entire arc in this movie is he just has one comedic scene with Slimer, and that's kind of it. That's not a spoiler. Slimer was in the trailer. What's her name? I can't even remember her name. Trevor's love interest is in this movie, and they've got nothing for her to do either. There's so many characters they don't know what to do with. The main character is very obviously Phoebe. I knew it was going to be Phoebe going in. But, unfortunately, there's some weird stuff they do with her that is so confusing and, ridiculous. I don't even fully know what to say about it. But yeah, overall, would I recommend this? I said, I'm glad I saw it. I had fun during certain parts. I remember laughing at several scenes. There were actually a lot of funny moments, in my opinion. It's just there was also, some disappointing stuff. I could have used a little more busting, to be honest. The opening scene is busting, and it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed that a lot. And then they kind of don't really bust until the end. And even the ending, I'm not going to spoil it here. I'll get into spoilers later, but they pretty much have a perfect setup to have the whole cast of Ghostbusters, because they have so many characters, go up against so many ghosts, and they don't really do that. They just kind of focus on the main guy. And I was like, this climax could have been so much crazier and so much more fun and insane. And I feel a little disappointed by it. So yeah, it's kind of hard to say. And yeah, again, there are characters making dumb decisions a lot of the time. And there are characters saying weird, hypocritical stuff a lot of the time. Ernie Hudson, I absolutely love Ernie Hudson. But even his character makes some weird decisions and says some weird, hypocritical things. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Were you not just it's weird. There's this, and there's some ghosts that they sadly don't really do anything with. The one that they do the most with, there's this, this isn't a spoiler just for me to say this, there's a ghost called, I think, the Possessor Ghost, and they do stuff with that, and it's fun. But they also introduce, this really creepy-looking ghost and do nothing with it. And then they introduce this dumb little puking ghost that's gee, I wonder where that's going. Is it going to be a one-off puking joke? Oh, surprise, it was a one-off puking joke. Who cares? There was no point in that in the film. Paul Rudd is extremely likable and like charismatic. He's Paul Rudd, you know. He's just great in everything he's in. The mom is just fine because they don't really give her anything else to do. like, you know, Phoebe's got this thing going on where like it's like, can she technically be a Ghostbuster because she's underage? And so that's actually something that kind of makes sense. But there's also this constant like, oh, the Ghostbusters caused public property damage while they were chasing ghosts. Like, who's going to pay for this? Like, I've seen that plot 500 billion times, and I'm tired of it. And, like, should the Ghostbusters not be... Also, the whole town knows about ghosts now. Like, the whole town, mayor included, knows for a fact that ghosts exist. Even the cops, when they see ghosts, they're like, okay, the Ghostbusters have that. So should the Ghostbusters not just be, like, a public first responder service at this point or something like that? Like, should it not be like a government thing at this point, like the police or the fire station? I don't know. The plot doesn't make any sense. And I know that Ghostbusters is like a Saturday morning cartoon, so it doesn't need to make that much sense. But I don't know. It's just, sometimes it drags a little too hard. Also, I feel like the villain, again, this was in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling it. The villain has these ice powers. And what I thought was a cool idea was they said it's not just ice, it's specifically the chill of fear. That chill you feel when you're afraid. And I thought, oh, that's cool. What are they going to do with that? Like, are they going to make it that his power is stronger when people are afraid of him? Are they going to make it his power's ineffective if you're not afraid? Is, like, the heat of courage going to overcome the chill of fear? No, they don't do any of that. It's literally just ice powers. Like, he just uses ice powers. Like, there's no limit to it, and yet and of course, there are times where the villain can easily wipe out all the heroes and just chooses not to. His powers are also really inconsistent. Like, there's times where it's established that his ice power would kill people, but then there's other times where it's just going to temporarily freeze people, which is not how ice works. But I know this is a Saturday morning cartoon, so I went in not expecting it to work exactly how ice would work, but then they establish in the opening that it's going to work how ice would work, but then it does. I don't even know. It's all over the place how the villain's power works. But like I said, there were a lot of jokes that legitimately made me laugh. It is fun just to see the Ghostbusters back. It's so clear that, like, Dan Aykroyd wants to be here and Ernie Hudson wants to be here. I don't know about Bill Murray, but I still like Bill Murray. Like, it's good to see him. I'd give this a 5, maybe, out of 10 for average film. 5 is average. 7 is not average. People need to drop that idea. Like, 5 is average because it's right in the middle. So yeah, I'd say, you know, if you really just want more Ghostbusters stuff, like, this is an okay time. But, you know, if you were looking for, like, the next step in, like, Ghostbusters, like, for it to, like, take a step up from the last film, it doesn't really do that. But still, I had an okay time watching it, and I got some good laughs out of it. And that's kind of the main thing I want when I go into Ghostbusters. I just want to have fun, and I did have some fun. So, it's okay. It's a decent popcorn film. Okay, I'm going to go into spoilers now, because I have to talk about spoilers. Okay, 3, 2, 1, spoilers. So, Dickless from the first movie, if you've seen it, you know who I'm talking about, is now the mayor? Even though he put the whole fucking city at risk? How did he become mayor? I don't know. I guess politics are stupid. And he's still an idiot, is the problem. You'd think his character would grow and he would learn from his mistakes. No, he's still just as dumb as he was back then. I want to get rid of the Ghostbusters. I will do whatever it takes to get rid of the Ghostbusters. Even though now I know for a fact that ghosts exist. Like, what is wrong with you? How can you be this stupid? It's unbelievable how anyone can be this dumb. And also when Paul Rudd, when he's saying the little girl, like, to Phoebe, he's like, you're underage, you shouldn't be a Ghostbusters. And then Paul Rudd comes up and he says, look, I know she's underage, but she's incredible. Like, you wouldn't believe the kind of stuff she could do. And I was like, okay, I like this. And the guy goes, well, are you her guardian? And then Paul Rudd's like, well, I'm her step teacher? Like, what? Why don't you just say stepfather? That's guardian. Or why don't you bring her mother up and say, no, but the mother's the guardian and she agrees with what I'm saying? Like, why don't you just say that? What's wrong with you? Again, another character, like, kind of being dumb right now. I feel like they were just trying to be funny. A step teacher, haha. I didn't laugh at that. Like, what are you doing? Also, like, Dan Aykroyd's running a show now for finding spirits in artifacts, which yeah, that sounds exactly like something Dan Aykroyd would do. And when he reads, oh, I'm sorry, there's no spirit in your artifact, in this watch that your late husband left to you, this very valuable watch, then Podcast smashes it with a hammer and goes, the hammer gets the views. And I'm like, dick? Like, again, I didn't laugh at that. That's just mean. Why would you do that? That's horrible. Oh god. Okay, well, I'm gonna talk about some other stuff. So apparently Ernie Hudson has started his own, like, ghost busting group, separate from Phoebe's ghost busting group. And his, like, has all this high-tech stuff. Like, they use technology to literally pull spirits out of objects. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, why did he do this in secret? Why didn't he unify with Phoebe's Ghostbusters? Like, I feel like things would have gone a lot better if you had all just been working together. So that's kind of weird. But yeah, again, that's where the Possessor gets introduced. That's where the really cool-looking ghost that never gets used gets introduced. That's where the stupid little puke demon who's there to entertain your 3-year-old gets introduced. And, yeah, so they established that they have a machine that can pull ghost spirits out of objects, which is kind of a cool idea, and then they store them away. And then, so, I have to tell you that because it leads into what I'm saying next. So Phoebe is feeling isolated because since she's underage, they decide, okay, I guess you can't be a Ghostbuster, we're gonna get in trouble with the city. Which really they should just sit down and talk to her about. Like, she's like, are you really going to not let me in the Ghostbusters? Like, they should really just sit her down and be like, look, Phoebe, we want to let you in the Ghostbusters, but unfortunately the law is the law, and you did build this team. They should say that to her, because she did. She built the team. She'd be like, Phoebe, you built this team. We are so proud of you, and this team would not be here without you. Look, why don't you just work behind the scenes, work with Ernie Hudson's freaking Ghostbusters group, because that's not, like, a public thing. Like, run things behind the scenes. You just don't go out into the field until you're 18. Like, I think that would have been a great way. I'm so sick and tired of contrived, like, plot problems because characters don't just talk to each other or be open with each other or appreciate each other. It's like, are people like this? Are people actually like this? Like, normally? Like, I always thought it was a minority of people that are this dumb, but I see it in almost every damn film and show. Like, can people just talk the way a human being would talk? So she feels isolated, which, again, I'm not too bad on the whole plot of Phoebe feeling isolated. I can understand it. I could understand them, like, but you could still have that even if they spoke to her and said, hey, we're proud of you for founding the team, but we can't have you in the field. And just have her depressed that she can't go in the field, but you don't have to have all this dumb angsty stuff. So she goes to a park to play chess at, in the middle of the night in New York City. It's kind of dangerous, isn't it? And there's actually a scene I like where she meets a ghost playing chess, and the ghost is all like, aren't you, like, I'm a ghost in case you haven't noticed. She's like, yeah, I can tell. Well, people usually run away by now. Do you want me to go? No, you don't have to. Like, that was funny. I was laughing. The theater was laughing. We were having a good time. But, I was getting the vibe that these two were going to be friends or something, because they had, like, a little, like, just companionship vibe to them. But no, apparently from their tiny little scenes together, I was supposed to put together that they're in love, which, look, having them be in love is not a problem. The issue is, you didn't really get that across, in my opinion. And I asked, like, Wilda about it after, and she was like, I didn't even pick that up. Like, are they a thing? Like, it's just, like, you didn't really establish it. I feel like you're trying to hide from China or something. But yeah, they literally just talk to each other, and then they talk to each other again later. And then suddenly, right the balls out of nowhere. Like, they're just like, hey, you know, you want to hang out? And then Phoebe, and I don't even remember exactly how we got to it, but I remember there was almost no lead up to it. Like, Phoebe's like, hey, I know a way that we can actually be together for a bit. And so then Phoebe takes the ghost into Ernie Hudson's Ghostbuster building, which has no security, I guess. You don't have security or anyone working late nights in a building that's holding ghosts! And she goes in there and goes, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna step into the soul machine. And this machine is gonna rip my soul out of my body. But it's okay, I'm gonna put it on a 2-minute timer. And we're gonna get to, I guess, make out for 2 minutes? She doesn't even say. It's like, I don't even fully get why she was doing it. There's so many things wrong with this scene. First of all, where the hell did this come from? You're just suddenly so in love and so have to have this ghost girl, Melanie, I think her name was, that you're willing to rip your soul out of your body for 2 minutes with no indication that this is safe to do, by the way. They were not doing this on humans. They were doing this on possessed objects. How do you know your soul's going to be able to go back into your body safely? How do you even know you can set a 2-minute timer? Like, what is wrong with you? Are you insane? This is crazy. And then what makes it even worse is when she rips her soul out of her body to go make it. Also, 2 minutes, is that enough for anybody? Like, to go, like, I guess, kiss the ghost girl. It turns out this was all part of the villain's plan. The villain, who is inside of an orb, he's trapped in an orb, which is supposed to keep him, like, fully contained, but somehow while he's trapped in an orb fully contained, with, like, he is still able to communicate with and control other ghosts. First of all, if that's the case, why didn't he just send a bunch of ghosts to, like, I don't know, like, blackmail some. All he needed was for a human being to speak a set of words. There are about 1,000,000,005 ways you can do that if you can control ghosts. But instead, you relied on the most specific, contrived plan you could possibly have. Where apparently it was part of your plan that this Melanie ghost girl would go seduce Phoebe. He somehow, I guess, just magically knew Phoebe was gay. I didn't know she was gay. Maybe I missed something. I don't know. He just somehow magically knew she was gay. He magically knew she would run into Melanie. He magically knew she would have a thing for Melanie. Also, what's also weird is he can control ghosts, but he has to convince Melanie to join him. Just control her. What are you doing? Like, he also magically knew that there was a soul-ripping machine in Ernie Hudson's thing, and he magically knew Phoebe would find out about it, and he magically knew that Phoebe would bring up to go to it. She brings it up. Melanie doesn't bring it up. He magically knew that Phoebe would be dumb enough to rip her soul out of her body so that he could then control her soul, and he also magically knew that making her soul speak would also make her body speak. I remember thinking, well, you're making the soul speak. Does that... Oh, the body's speaking too. Okay. How does he know all of that? It's insane. It's beyond insane. I don't even know. So yeah, you can see that's the part where I was just internally screaming, like, what are you doing, movie? And it's funny because later Phoebe asks Melanie, was any of it real? Any of what? You guys didn't have anything. All you did was talk a little bit about, like, hey, how'd you die? Fire. You know, it sucked, you know. I miss my family. Oh, was any of that real, I guess? I don't know. It's ridiculous. They introduced something I actually kind of liked. I feel like not everyone's going to like this, but I liked it. There's this thing now called the Fire Master, which Kumail is the Fire Master. It's where, so apparently this ice demon, like I think thousands of years ago, he was defeated by a group of people who could control fire. They were called, like, pyrokinesis is what they had. And they were called the Fire Masters. And they say, man, they're like an older version of the Ghostbusters. And I was like, oh, you know, that's kind of a cool idea. That's a good way to actually build the world, establish that there are older orders who were dealing with ghosts in the past, because otherwise it'd be like, what was going on with ghosts a couple hundred years ago? Well, you can say like, well, there's Ghostbusters now, but there are also older orders that were dealing with ghosts, and Kumail is a descendant of one of those, so he can control fire. And even the scenes where he's trying to learn to control fire, I liked those. Those were funny, and I was actually rooting for him. I was like, come on, get it. So that I actually liked. I feel like not everyone's gonna like it, because it's a pretty big new thing. They're adding in a guy who can literally just control fire, who isn't a ghost or anything. Sorry. My throat's a little weird. But I liked it. I actually thought that was fun. But yeah, then when they get to there's also one scene where they bring back the library ghost from the first film that just it was kind of random and out of nowhere. I actually think there's a better way to use it, and I'm about to tell you. So in the climax, in the ending, the ice ghost shows up. Oh, and by the way, Phoebe figures out that the ice ghost's weakness is copper or brass. So she's like, okay, I'm going to put brass in my proton pack so we can fight it. I'm like, great. Put it in everyone else's too. They don't do that. Everyone else tries to shoot it, even though it's already been established that their regular proton packs won't work. And they're like, oh my god, it's not working. Of course it's not working. You didn't put brass in your freaking packs. If you had, you would have taken that thing down in 2 seconds. You're all idiots. But in addition to that, so the ice god shows up. I don't remember his name. And he breaks open the containment thing at the firehouse. So he lets out 40 years of ghosts. Every ghost the Ghostbusters have ever caught. I was like, oh, this is going to be insane. Now you're going to put that huge cast to use. You're going to have all of them going all over town using, like, you're going to have one guy using the little remote control containment thing. You're going to have one person using the drone containment thing. You're going to have people driving in the car catching ghosts. You're going to have people running in the streets catching ghosts. And meanwhile, at the firehouse, you're going to have Phoebe and Kumail battling the god together. Like, it's going to be insane. And you can unleash all the ghosts from the previous films. Like, you can pull out, like, that would be a great place to pull out the library ghost from the first movie. But no, they don't. Instead, they just do it randomly at another point in the film. Like, it would have been so cool. Like, you could put in ghosts from the real Ghostbusters cartoon. You could put in all this familiar shit, and it would make perfect sense to have those member berries there, because they've literally just been unleashed from where they were captured in the firehouse. And you could have all this crazy fighting going on. But no, I shit you not, the fact that this guy unleashes 40 years of ghosts plays into absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. I guess they're planning to do that in the sequels or something, but nothing happens as a result of it. So they all just fight the ice guy, and he has so many opportunities to just kill them all. Oh, by the way, there was one little scene where he's looking for the Fire Master, and he says, "Are you the Fire Master?" I was like, I actually kind of like that. It reminds me of the first film, but it's a new twist on it, so cool. Yeah, so he just fights Phoebe and the fire, like he fights everyone at the place, and he freezes all of them. He has icicles going right up to their necks, and just stops them there. It's like, just kill them. What are you doing? And in the opening scene is great. It's like shown that this guy has attacked people before, and they're frozen, and body parts have fallen off, and they all died. But in this scene, he doesn't kill them all. Nobody, he doesn't kill. Like he freezes the town, icicle spikes shooting up out of the ground, and nobody dies. The only person who dies in this whole film is one guy running like a cigarette store, because the god thinks he's the Fire Master. And even he, but maybe he didn't die. Maybe he froze and then got unfrozen later. But he gets icicles up to everyone's necks, and then instead of impaling them all, he just freezes them all. And then later they all just unfreeze perfectly fine. No hypothermia, no nothing. And it's like, okay, like you've kind of... Look, I don't want the characters to die or anything, but, you've kind of taken all the threat away. Like, there's so much time where the villain is just standing there. Just standing there while Kumail is trying to light a lighter, and while they're all getting ready and talking about, oh, you do this. It's like, kill him! What are you doing? It's hard to be scared of this villain when you make him stupid while at the same time being clairvoyant, because he knew everything Phoebe was going to do. So he's stupid and clairvoyant, and he's a killer who constantly decides not to kill people, even though he's apparently wiped out entire armies in Legend and stuff like that. So, what is this god's deal? I don't know. But yeah, they eventually beat him by everyone working together, and the way they all work together is while Phoebe's shooting him with the proton pack, her family comes and helps her hold it, and meanwhile the Fire Master is blasting him to weaken him, and meanwhile the original team is downstairs pulling open the containment thing. Oh, and yeah, so that's how they beat him. There's a couple things I forgot to mention. One was there's a scene where a lion statue gets possessed by the possessor ghost, and there's tons of witnesses who see this thing come to life, and then Phoebe blasts it because it's possessed by a ghost, and later they're like, why would you destroy the lion? Do you know how great... Even Ernie Hudson is saying, why would you destroy that lion? And the mayor is like, yeah, you guys are in so much trouble. It's like, there's tons of witnesses that thing was possessed by a ghost. Hello? And Ernie Hudson, what are you talking about? You're a Ghostbuster. You know how this works. And then at the end of the film, they showed that lion again perfectly fixed. How did that even happen? I don't get it. I think I missed something. And also, there's a scene where Ernie Hudson is telling Dan Aykroyd to retire. He's like saying, dude, these are supposed to be our golden years. I'm like, you're doing it too, though, aren't you? It's weird. But then there's a scene I like where Dan Aykroyd's like, yes, but this is what I want to spend my golden years doing. I love this. I'm like, that's a nice scene. So yeah, I think I pretty much laid out my problems with the film, but I still had fun watching it, even though it was really, really stupid a lot of the time. But that's all I have to say. What did you think of it? Do you want a sequel? Personally, I'm still open to a sequel, because there was nothing, like, offensive or lore-ruining in the film. There was just dumb stuff in the film. It didn't, like, break the continuity or anything, so... I'd be open to seeing them maybe take feedback and apply that to the next film. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I don't know how to end videos.